Hello! Good morning and welcome, everybody. I'm the Reverend William Levwood. I'm the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. My pronouns are he and him. As we begin our service, if you're in person, I invite you to silence your phones. If you're at home, to close the other windows on your computer. Does anybody really do that? I always have so many windows open, I could not possibly do that. We just want your attention. So take a deep breath and send to yourself for worship. We open in welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that this church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all shall one day know full justice. The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the courageous spirit. Thank you. You may be seated.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Christina Watts, and my pronouns are she and her, and I am very happy to be your worship associate today. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. If you're new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, just about anyone here can tell you more about us. That includes those of us, our greeters and our minister, myself, or anyone with one of these cross-stitch name tags. So whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour, online and in person, immediately after the service. And today we also have one of my favorite activities, our meal packing for children who are facing food insecurity. So you're welcome to stay for that. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome.
So first of all, I just want to share that the service has been advertised as following a moving center together. But that's not the real title. And I probably will preach a sermon about that sometime. So I'm going to use that one again some other time. So this is centering together with 5 smooth stones. So 5 smooth stones refers to an idea that comes from James Luther Adams, who's a Unitarian Universalist theologian. I'll say a lot more about that later in the service. But you have something about it on a piece of paper and some crayons that you'll be able to decorate this with symbols or words. You also have stones. And I want to just say that this is a grand collaboration. So I had initially thought to do this service on these 5 stones, I don't know, 6 months ago, Allie? About? And Allie made these stones. And then I said, oh, wait, I need more time to get this together and do it right. And I knew that we had the theme of finding our center as our January theme. And so I thought, we'll do it in January. And then Allie left. And then synchronicities of all synchronicities, we're bringing her back today to celebrate her service. And we're using her stones. And then we're also introducing our new Director of Spiritual Development for Children and Youth, Ashley Nelson, who made the printout and the slides that you'll see. So it's a real collaboration, not to mention that Allie and I can't remember who came up with this more user-friendly version of the 5 smooth stones. James Luther Adams, went to Harvard, I think, so he's talking in all academic theological language, but this is a more usable version that some religious educator I think influenced by other religious educators, because I've seen other versions of it. So they're like floating around and making this for us. And so a lot of what this service is based on the religious educators in our Unitarian Universalist Association. So we want to celebrate all of those people today. Very often in Unitarian Universalism, our religious educators are our pioneers and prophets. They're doing the stuff that the rest of us are going to be doing in 10 or 15 years before we're doing them. So we really want to lift up how wonderful our religious educators are. So, in that spirit, I'm going to call Allie Mills up so that we can celebrate Allie this morning. Are we ready for that, Olivia? So Allie became the Director of Spiritual Development during the pandemic, correct? Yes. Is that right? And before that was the RE coordinator, along with Laura Prophet, who was the Director of Spiritual Development, has been with the congregation, was with the congregation for 5 years. And I just have to say just how wonderful and amazing it was to work with you, Allie, and I miss you so much. You brought so much to this program. I know from working with you during the pandemic, it's been amazing to collaborate with you. And Olivia's also gonna, if you'll come to the mic, Olivia, so that everybody can hear. I have an extra mic, but.
I'm gonna put it here. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. That's very
Not too heavy. I wrote some things down because I'm terrible at remembering what was in my head, and then I jump around and it doesn't make any sense. If any of you have any connection in the military, you know how this works. You must stand at attention while we say nice things about you. One thing I can say about what I love about Allie is she's very resourceful. If you are teaching any of the classes that she set up, it has all the bells and whistles. You just teach, and all the materials that you need will be there. Books, art supplies, new costumes for the Easter Bunny. She's psychic. She can see problems before they happen, such as if the lesson plan says glitter, we get glitter glue. She's also very flexible. We needed slides for the virtual service, and she jumped in, did all the slides. That's why they come out so perfect, and it's all animated. I don't know where you get all those pictures.
RW's got some, but
She's got like some secret stash
it's a
somewhere.
collaboration.
If we needed shakers for Time for All Ages, we had shakers in the service. And I don't know why your psychic didn't see this coming, but shakers with children in the service. But it's okay. It worked out. Kids here are pretty well behaved, surprisingly. She's got the credit card and the Oriental trading account, so she can pretty much get anything. I just want to say, as it says on Matthew 7:7, ask and it shall be given. And what is it? Knock and the door will be open. And you came through that door and helped us out, and we're going to miss you. Thank you.
Wonderful. So,
Well, should I say something? 'Cause
Yeah, say something.
I wasn't prepared for a speech. Whew. Didn't think I was going to get sappy. That was that extra clap. Whew. Whew, okay. Well, if you didn't know, I've been in the background hiding for about 6 months now, I think. So I wasn't prepared with my speech, but it has been my pleasure and my honor, and I appreciate you all. You know, my return back to teaching second grade has really taught me so much being here, and just, you know, bringing justice and inclusivity into my classroom. It's just really opened my eyes so much, so thank you all.
All right, so we're celebrating Allie, but we also want to introduce our new Director of Spiritual Development for Children and Youth. And I want to point out that Allie was a full-time Director of Spiritual Development, and part of the reason that Allie left was because of budget concerns. We had to cut that to 32 hours a week. And then we cut it even more to 20 hours a week. So it's a 20-hour-a-week position, and it's now only for children and youth programming. It doesn't include Lifespan, which Allie's position did. So just want to make that clear. So a little different, but we're excited to welcome Ashley, and we're going to pass the baton, or the keys, actually. So Ashley, if you'll come up and get the keys.
There's still a lot of these, backpack name tags I made 2 years ago.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Gosh, I love Allie already, and I just met her today. So thank you, Allie, for the time you've taken even today to show me around. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. I'm so excited to be a part of the UU experience as the Director of Spiritual Development for Children and Youth. To me, there is no greater joy than serving children and youth. To give you a brief history of myself, I have worked in education for the last 15 years in multiple capacities. The last 7 years, I was a director at a child care center, and now I currently teach third grade at Pinnacle Academy in Chantilly. I have an associate's degree in child development, a BA in education administration, and an MA in education and family and community services. I also am currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership. I know that sounds like a lot, guys, but myself personally, I thrive at going 110% and draw my energy from activity. So I'm really looking forward to being a very active part of our UU community. I have two grown daughters, Samantha and Sarah. They are both attending the University of Southern Florida in St. Petersburg. Also have a fiance, Mike. He's wonderful. He's not here today, but I hope to bring him possibly next week. I'm a native of Burke. I live on the same street that I grew up on. My parents live literally a minute away from me in the home that I grew up in. So I love this area. I'm a connoisseur of fine wines and a lover of hot yoga. I enjoy nature walks along the trails behind my home. And so a little brief synopsis of myself, but I really look forward to getting to know each and every one of you. So thank you for having me.
Earlier we sang about our 7 principles. And I mentioned that this congregation voted to adopt the 8th principle. And right now there's a process to revise our principles. But our principles aren't the only repository, aren't the only source of our defining core values. So today I'm going to share another articulation of our core values from UU theologian James Luther Adams of blessed memory, often referred to affectionately as JLA. JLA wrote an essay about what he called the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. So these 5 stones are power, possibility, partnership, justice, and hope. According to JLA, each of these stones is an attitude to a negative quality. So positivity is the antidote to ignorance. Possibility is the antidote to ignorance. Power is the antidote to apathy. Partnership is the antidote to individualism. And justice is the antidote to selfishness. And hope is the antidote to cynicism. These 5 smooth stones have a biblical basis. These are symbolically the stones that David picked up on his way to take down Goliath. So these aren't just the central values of liberal religion. As we can see in that story, they're also the foundations of a movement for liberation in the face of tyranny and oppression. So power, possibility, partnership, justice, and hope, that's the one-word version of each stone. The meaning of each is a bit more specific than that one word, so I'm going to explain each one a little bit more. And just as we have a children's version of our UU principles, this is a less academic version. But before I do that, you've got 5 stones in your bag. So pull those out. That was given to you this morning. Take them out, hold them in your hands. You might even start to think about which one you want to represent each of these values. So I chose the kind of standing stone one that I have for power. I chose this not quite circular one for possibility. It's also got some color here that I like. I chose for partnership and justice, I have a white and a black, and if I put them together, they kind of make a circle. So partnership and justice, and then I chose a circular one for hope. So look at yours. It might take you a while. It took me a while to figure out which ones I wanted to be which. You also have a mat, and we want to encourage you to use the crayons that you were given to decorate this mat with any symbols you might have. So here we have an example that Ashley made for the 5 smooth stones, and as I talk about them, we'll show each of them, a slide for each of them as I go into a little more detail. All right, so power. Power refers to our ability to have an effect on our world. We make the world what it is. The power is in our hands, and it's up to us to make the world the way we want it to be. On your mat, there's a sentence about the essence of what JLA meant by power. Good things don't just happen, we make them happen. The next stone is possibility. Some religious traditions believe that at some point in the past the truth was revealed, and now we have all the answers, and we just need to follow that revealed truth. But as Unitarian Universalists, we don't believe that. We believe that new truths are still being revealed. We believe that we're still coming to new understandings about how the world works and about the best ways to be together. This is the stone of possibility, summarized on your mat as we are always learning new truths, which brings us to the stone of partnership. None of us have the whole truth. None of us have it all figured out, and none of us have the power all by ourselves to make the world the way we want it to be, or even to make our own life the way we want it to be. We need to come together in partnership. There are many ways to do that, many ways to come together in partnership. One way is to choose to be part of a congregation, like this one, to be here participating and contributing to this community. So for partnership, your mat says we choose to be in relationship together. And you notice on this one that rather than an image, right, we've seen some images. I love that Ashley chose a light bulb for power, little visual pun there. But here we have words, synonyms, similar words. So, maybe you're a more visual person, maybe you're a more word-oriented person. Decorate the mat according to your own learning style. So we come together to learn and to join our power together in partnership, but for what purpose? So the 4th stone, justice, is that purpose. To make the world just, a place of peace and justice for all people. This is work we do in this community. It's work we do in the wider world. We do it in our schools, our hospitals, our government, our culture, our global community. We do it in so many ways here with our outreach collection and our hypothermia shelter and our meal packing that we're going to do today and showing up for protest. Many, many ways that we work together to bring justice. So your mat says we work for a just and loving community. And finally, the last stone is hope. And these days that can be the most difficult stone. Remember, hope is the antidote to cynicism. And for me, I can say what helps me to be hopeful is the other 4 stones. To remember that we have the power to make good things happen, to remember that we can partner together to work for a more just world, and that we're always learning more about how to use our personal and collective power in partnership for justice. So when we put all of those stones together, especially that stone of possibility, we have a foundation for hope. As your 5 smooth stone mat says for the stone of hope, we can change the world for the better. So last Sunday, the service was our hymnal is our holy book, and you heard reflections of favorite hymns from members of this congregation. In a way, this service is my version of that. We're going to focus on one of my favorite hymns, number 298, Wake Now My Senses, because there's 5 verses, and I think that each of those verses correlates nicely with these 5 smooth stones. So before I talk about power and possibility, I just want to mention something that, it might seem like some of the children aren't paying close attention, but I remember one flower communion that I saw my daughter, and she didn't seem to be paying a lot of attention. She wasn't making the flower out of the tissue paper. And then after the service, it turned out she had written a poem on the tissue paper that completely summarized what the flower communion and the message of the service was all about. So I assure you that the children are paying attention to everything that's being said. So, power and possibility. I want to share that in a lot of religious traditions, particularly in Christianity, there's a vision of God and humanity where God has a lot of power and influence, and humanity has very little power and agency. Even humanity is said to have original sin, or even to be morally depraved by our very nature. And therefore, we need the salvation that comes from that all-powerful, omnipotent God who has so much power and agency in the world. And our job is to put our faith in that divine power. Now, in Unitarian Universalism, now we have many theologies. There are atheists here, there are non-theists here, there are monotheists here, there are polytheists here in this sanctuary this morning, and people who probably, like myself, move in and out of those, like I'm a agnostic on Monday and an atheist for certain kinds of God, images of God every day, and a struggling atheist on Tuesday, and panentheist on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But throughout our history, even when our Unitarian Universalist traditions were more theistic, we still had an opposite view of the relationship between God and humanity. So our religious forebears proposed that God actually doesn't do a lot in the world. That God created a world where we can thrive and gave us the ability as human beings to thrive, especially if we together make a good garden for each other. But then God isn't doing a whole lot after that, which is maybe one reason why, whether we're theists or atheists, we can join together in this sanctuary together, because we believe that humanity, it's up to us. We've been given the agency, we've been given the ability. It doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes, doesn't mean we don't struggle, but we have the ability, and it's up to us to make the world the way that we want it to be. So you see how that's a different construction. So when JLA talks about power, he's talking about our power and agency, personally and collectively, to bring about the world that we dream to have, okay? The other difference is this possibility, this fact that we're always learning. So rather than putting our faith in this all-powerful divinity because we can't possibly learn and grow, we believe that we can learn and grow and transform our character and transform our society, and that we're always learning, both personally and throughout human history, how to do that better. Not that it's a straightforward line of progress, it's an oscillation. Things get better and worse, and better in some areas and worse in others over time, right? But we're working, we're learning and growing together. So that's power and possibility. Those are the first of the 2 5 smooth stones. So I told you I think that this song, Wake Now My Senses, encapsulates these values. Oh, and one more thing. I was talking with my 9-year-old, and we only got through power, so I only have one little bit of wisdom to share from them. But I shared this idea that people have the power to make good things happen. And my child said, you know, that makes it sound like the only good things that happen in the world are the things that humans make happen. But there's a lot of good things in the world, right? This goes back to the image of God, right? That our Unitarian Universalist forebears had, that we have been given a world full of beauty and goodness that surrounds us. So a lot of the beauty and goodness comes from the world around us, right? And it's not just us, but the natural world, the animals, the plants that we're in communication and relationship with. So you'll see that in this expressed better than JLA expressed it. Now, his context was David and Goliath and, right, shouting down tyranny, right? So I'll give him that. But you'll see in Wake Now My Senses that this first verse about power includes that wider world in it. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about partnership and justice. So when JLA talked about partnership, he really was talking about voluntary association. That's the word he used. And the fact that we should be able to join in communities without coercion. Now, I think that he was a harbinger of something that we've developed to a greater degree now. And that's why I use the word partnership, which I think he was getting at. If we're joining in community and there's no coercion, then we're in partnership. And he talked about how some ecclesiological structures, some religious structures are very hierarchical. But ours is not. It's very flat, and we give a lot of power to you, right? As we come together in partnership and share power with, not power over. So now, as we extend that idea of partnership into the work of justice making, we have a new learning that those of us who have privilege in some way, whether that's racial privilege because we're white, gender privilege because we're male, I could go on and on, you get the idea, that we have a responsibility not to put onto other people our ideas of what justice looks like, but join in partnership with those people so that they're empowered and we're part of empowering them in partnership to make justice the justice that they see. So in disability justice movement, there's a phrase, nothing about us without us, that I think really speaks to this importance of partnership. So we work in partnership to bring about justice. And I mentioned I chose this white stone. I partly chose that because it's white, right? I think white people in particular need to learn about partnership. Right? So that's why I chose that. And I chose the black stone for justice, right? To symbolize all the marginalized people in the world. And then also they make a circle, right? So that's another image of partnership to make justice. Another image of justice, right? Two sides in harmony, in proper cooperation and balance and equity. So I wonder if any of you, and I'm going to do something that we just talked about at our Worship Associates meeting that we shouldn't do, which is I'm going to ask you to shout out without a mic, but I will repeat what you say so everybody can hear it. That's an accessibility issue that we always need to repeat or say things on a mic. So I'm curious, can you think of examples of justice movements that have been done in partnership? Either within, so I'll give you the example of labor unions, right? Labor unions are working in partnership amongst each other, just like congregations are working in partnership. We work in partnership amongst each other. But also I'm thinking about like different communities, privileged communities and marginalized communities coming together. Anybody think of any examples?
Voice, the interfaith.
Voice. Oh, that's a perfect one. Thank you, Judy. I was going to say that one if nobody else did. So we work as part of Voice. Voice is a great example of all of these stones because first they go and they work in partnership to find out what social justice issues to work on. Oh, wait, I'm not done with Voice. We'll get to environmental justice. So first they go and they work in partnership with the communities. Then they do research, that stone of possibility, to find out what is actually going to make a difference in that issue. And then they organize people power in order to have the people power to go to legislatures and say, this is what needs to be done, and we want you to do it. And they're doing all of that to bring more justice in the world. So Voice, which we're a part of, and which there's going to be a lot more opportunity to work on affordable housing and mental health reform, is an example of that. And then John said environmental justice, right? I think of Standing Rock as a great example of people coming together, right? Not just Native Americans coming to Standing Rock and Native Americans from all over the nation, but also Unitarian Universalist ministers and congregants. Members went to Standing Rock. People of all races and backgrounds went to Standing Rock to join together in solidarity and partnership. ARC. Yes. So ARC is an outreach collection for us, and also I know many of you volunteer, or some of you volunteer with ARC, and you used to work for them in Philadelphia. So that's another example. The bus boycott, that's a beautiful example. Yes. So people came together to do that bus boycott. Remember I spoke about that a while back, that was not only about racial justice, but in particular about justice for black women who were facing violence and even sexual violence.
NAACP, the oldest social justice organization, was founded by white and black people to work together.
The NAACP that was founded, thank you, I got the stones, yeah, founded by white and black people together to work for justice for people of color. Yeah. Our outreach collection program in general, the fact that we even do that. Yeah. The United Nations, which has strong, especially philosophically, but also in involvement, roots in Unitarian Universalism. Yeah, the United Nations, people coming together in partnership. Oh my gosh, we're going to be here all day.
I was going to say the Coalition for Black Lives
The Coalition for Black Lives
encourages people to follow the lead of black people.
encourages people to follow the lead of black people who are most directly impacted by anti-blackness and racial injustice towards black people. So follow the lead. Yes? I'm sorry, say that again? Because they weren't getting enough benefits. So school strike to get better benefits for teachers. Is that right? Yeah, that's a great example. And it also makes me think of the school strike for gun violence, right? Children walking out of that, which also makes me think of the climate strike, Fridays for the Future, which was led by youth, right? And by the way, Greta Thunberg, as important and wonderful as she is also building on the work of indigenous youth activists for that climate justice work. No. Okay, let's one more, Mary?
Oh, no, VICPP.
VICPP, which we have legislative days coming up. So,
And the church is heavily involved in
yes.
the second one, of course, is gun violence prevention.
And gun violence prevention. So there's all these ways that we can engage in, and that we do engage in partnering for justice. So with that in mind, we're going to sing the next two verses. Now, I was thinking about these next two verses. Initially, I thought that it was partnership and then justice, but I actually, because justice is in the fourth verse, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think the first verse is about justice, and then with justice as our guide, as it says in the second verse, we work in partnership. Maybe you'll see that as you sing. All right, so now we come to the last stone, that hope stone. So I want to start off just by acknowledging that not everything is getting better. Many things are, in fact, getting worse. There are still plenty of problems and far too much inequality, oppression, and suffering in the world, but there is reason for hope. So I want to give you some examples. These come from the book Utopia for Realists. So, of hopeful changes that have happened in recent human history. So worldwide, life expectancy has grown from 64 years in 1990 to 70 in 2012. So in just, what is that, 22 years? Am I doing the math right? And it's more than double, life expectancy is more than double what it was in 1900. In terms of hunger, the number of people suffering from malnutrition has sunk by more than a third, again, since 1990. And the share of the world population that survives on fewer than 2,000 calories a day has dropped from 51%, 51%, surviving on less than 2,000 calories in 1965 to 3% in 2005. That's amazing. Between 1990 and 2012, more than 2.1 billion people got access to clean water, clean drinking water. And in the same period, child mortality fell an incredible 41%, and maternal deaths were cut in half. In 1962, as many as 41% of children didn't go to school. Today, that's under 10%. And in the past decade, this past decade rates as the most peaceful in all of human history. According to the Peace Research Institute in Oslo, the number of war casualties per year has plummeted 90% since 1946. So I give you these examples of hope because there is, even though there's problems, there's a lot of reason to be hopeful. And having the ability to hope is a fundamental human need. British philosopher Bertrand Russell wrote, "It is not a finished utopia that we ought to desire, but a world where imagination and hope are alive and active." And I said earlier for myself, the combination of these smooth stones gives me a lot of hope as well, that we have the power to make good things happen, that we can partner together to make a more just world, and that we're always learning more about our personal and collective power in partnership for justice. So with that in mind, let's join in singing the last verse of Wake Now My Senses, which is about hope, but also I think has all the stones in there a little bit. It uses the word ministry, but obviously it's not just talking about me as a minister, right? It's talking about all of us and the ministry we do together.
Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world. I invite you now to join me in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
So we were gonna sing Wake Now My Senses one more time, but we're not gonna do that in the interest of time. I do wanna say that you have now your 5 stones, you have your mat, you could like make an altar at home, you could put the 5 stones on it. I was also gonna ask you to share some of the images that maybe you came up with for the stones, but we don't have time for that. But I encourage you to do that during coffee hour or after the meal pack. In particular, I encourage older folks, parents, caregivers, older congregants, and younger folks, children and youth, to share amongst yourselves what images you came up with for the stones. And then the last thing I want to say is that, you might make an altar and work with these stones. You might grab one of these stones when you're having a hard time, and you need to remember that partnership means we can reach out for support from other people, that power means we have the ability to make changes and good things happen in our lives, that we can be a support for other people, we can put our power in the service of partnership with others. You might have a bad habit, like I've been trying to eat less meat and dairy for a few years now. So I'm learning about how to break habits using that stone of possibility as I work to live into my commitments to justice, right? And when I'm parenting, maybe I notice that I'm using too much power over. I remember that just as Cornel West said that justice is what love looks like in public, that the reverse should also be true, that love is what justice looks like in private, and that I need to focus on caring in that relationship and power with more than power over. So you can use these stones and these values in your daily life. You can call on them. And if you don't have the stones, you could even remember them with just your hands. We have hands, we have the power. Or maybe you even think of a fist, right? The raised fist is a symbol of black power. With possibility, maybe you remember that open book that we did for our song, for the principles song. Or for hope, maybe you remember that the horizon. You're looking out on the horizon. I love that for partnership, I would suggest that you imagine holding hands, which you can't do. I'm not talking about holding hands with yourself. You actually need somebody else to hold hands with. And for justice, maybe you do make kind of a yin-yang symbol with your hands, or with your hands like this, or in a handshake, which is a good symbol for having come to an agreement that's just for everybody involved. Or you can just use your fingers, right? So the possibility could be this finger as we look for the path ahead. So you could hold that finger to remember that stone. Obviously, the middle finger is going to be power, because it's the biggest one. And because we can use it in a bad way also. The ring finger could be partnership. Justice is that little finger, because what we do to the least of these, right, as Jesus said, it's as if we're doing it to our own selves. And hope, well, we have opposable thumbs, right? All right. So with that, may we take these learnings and these 5 smooth stones, this legacy of our living tradition that is always growing and changing. That's another part of possibility. That's why we can revise our principles and call them values instead of principles. So may we take that into our lives